There we go. All right, everyone, I'm recording this session. Good evening and welcome to another great professional learning opportunity offered by the Maine Department of Education. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jason Anderson and I'm your Visual and Performing Arts Content Specialist at the department. And I'm pleased to have our guest presenter back with us. She did her first session last week and did a fantastic job. And we're happy to have her back to talk about elementary singing and elementary music strategies and techniques and games, which will be a lot of fun and interactive, I've been told, for this afternoon's or this evening's session rather. Just to let everybody know about the format, Michelle, I'm going to introduce Michelle formally in just a moment. And then she has a presentation and we want to stop periodically and take questions. And we're not a very large group, so I invite you to just turn your microphone on and chime in if you have a question at any point during the session tonight. But if you're one of those folks that feels like they want to avoid interrupting the presenter, feel free to drop your questions in the chat box and we will check that periodically and make sure that we get to all of your questions. Whatever we have for a balance of time at the end, we'll just open up the floor for anyone to share where they are, what they're doing, what their strategies are, what their challenges are. If you want to go back and talk about anything specific or trade your trade secrets or whatnot, we can do all of that at the end of the session. I will also have an exit ticket for you that will have a link for you to claim your professional development certificate at the end of this session. So without further ado, I want to read a short bio of our presenter and then turn the floor over to her. Michelle Rose is an online music teacher who teaches middle school general music and high school music appreciation at the North Carolina Virtual Academy. She also directs the extracurricular virtual instrumental and vocal ensembles at her school. Michelle is an active teacher, author who creates resources for music teachers and writes for her blog, The Musical Rose. In addition to teaching and writing, Michelle is a sought-after clinician, presenter, and panelist, frequently presenting for numerous conferences and districts. Her most recent book, Teaching Music Online, a comprehensive guide for K-12 music educators, is a balance of practical advice, innovative teaching strategies, and educational philosophy designed to help teachers transition into online music education. And without further ado, I turn it over to Michelle Rose.
Awesome. Hey everyone, I am super excited to be here with you all. I just finished up a day of teaching, as I know you all have too, so grades were due this week and I feel you. I'm like, is it Friday yet? Grades week is always a killer. So I feel very excited though to be here, be in the presence of other music educators, especially because so many conferences have been canceled this year. So I love to connect online. And so I'm going to start by sharing my screen. And so I will have the slides for you all at the end. So I have a slide deck that you all will be able to make a copy of if you would like. And so welcome. So today we are going to talk a little bit about how to do singing games and synchronous sessions. And so thank you, Jason, for the introduction. You may be thinking, wait a second, I didn't hear any elementary music teaching experience in there. And so my main job is teaching high school and middle school, but I am the only music teacher K-12, so I do guest teach for elementary classes. And I taught K-2 my first year of teaching. So I do have a soft spot in my heart for the littles, and so I love to come in and guest teach every once in a while. This is my fourth year of teaching music online, so I was doing this before COVID hit, and so I've been trying to help as many music teachers as possible to kind of transition into this world. If you are interested in connecting, you can find me on Instagram at the_musical_rose or my website musicalrose.com. Okay, so I always put this disclaimer out here because I think it's important to just preface all of this with just that you cannot use the same techniques in online teaching that you did in brick and mortar teaching. So online teaching is a completely different skill set. And so a lot of times, I have seen people just say, well, or administrators mostly just say, well, you just do the same thing, you just turn a camera on. But it truly is a different set of skills and a different way to engage students. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how that can work today. But I always, talk about how this kind of environment is different, not less. So students will have a different experience, but it doesn't need to be a subpar experience. It doesn't mean that students can't learn. It's just different. And so I find that one of the benefits of my students being online is that they develop a lot of really independent musicianship skills. So there's definitely skills that can develop that maybe they won't have the opportunity to do so as much in person. And so I think focusing on what can be beneficial, what ways students can grow, can also be helpful, especially in a time where it feels like things are being thrown at us left and right. So first, I just wanted to talk a little bit about setting clear student expectations and just put some questions out there to consider, especially if you have felt like, maybe your online classes have been a little bit bumpy, or, maybe you want the pacing to go a little bit smoother. And so we're going to talk next week's session is going to focus solely on different engagement activities, K through 12. We'll go over some of that today, obviously, since we are doing singing games, but I just always like to put this out here. Considering these questions, I'm not going to read them off to you. You'll have the slide deck, but just considering these questions so students understand, like, especially, when should students log in? My students can log in up to 15 minutes before class starts. But the expectation is that they're in there at least 5 minutes beforehand because I always have a bell ringer for them to do. And it might be as simple as just gathering their materials. It might be as simple as checking their audio. It might be as complex as answering a question. But, if you're finding students are trickling in kind of later and later, re-establishing that expectation can be really helpful. Also, just simple things like how do students know when class is over? I always have a slide. It's the same slide every time to start the class and then the same slide every time to end the class. It may say something slightly different, but that way students know, okay, I am seeing this slide. That means that I can leave. Because sometimes I found when, I wasn't giving that clear expectation, sometimes I would have students leave at random points and they were just like, I thought you were done. Because it's kind of different where it's not like a classroom teacher is coming to pick them up from class necessarily. They're just logging into their next class. And so having clear expectations set and reestablishing them, especially since we're about halfway through the semester, this is usually when I go in and reiterate some of these expectations that may have slipped some students' minds over the first 9 weeks. This is just a great kind of checklist to make sure that you have everything covered, because I found when students know the answer to all of these questions, it makes your life a little bit easier. Okay, so we want to think about engaging students and more than just, okay, you're going to repeat after me in your home or wherever you're working. We want to think about different kind of engagement activities, whether it's the chat or through doing something maybe on camera or something like that. But we want to think about doing this pretty frequently. So if you're using a slide deck, every 1 to 2 slides, and I'm going to show you that in a moment, an example with the singing game we're doing. But then the next kind of frequency engagement you maybe want to think about is after videos. So students now have access to so many different videos, right? It's no longer just kind of a novelty to see someone playing violin in music class or something like that on a video. So students are kind of used to just viewing videos and maybe not in an academic way. So I tell my students, the way that I, maybe turn on YouTube on my Roku TV and just kind of bring something up, and I'm also playing Animal Crossing and maybe, texting my friend or something like that. That is not the same kind of video watching that we are doing in school. In school, we are paying attention. And so I always give them, something to think about or some sort of question before the video. And so that way, after the video, they're in that mindset of, okay, we are academic watching these videos, not just watching these and zoning out for fun. And so after videos, having some sort of engagement activity. And then if you're not doing either slides or videos, something every 5 minutes, especially if you have students who cameras aren't on, whether they don't work or they have low bandwidth or whatever. There are definitely many, many reasons why students don't end up having their camera on. But this kind of frequency can help you to gauge, what you should be doing in your lessons and ensuring that all students are active and participating in whatever you have to do for the day. So how do you engage students? We are going to take a look today at Nearpod in a moment. But before we do, I just want to talk about three main things, and I find these especially important with my younger students. But even I always tell people all the time, like I've taught kindergartners and I've taught high schoolers, and there are many similarities between the two, believe it or not. And so all students, benefit from clarity of instruction and repetition and all of that. So first of all, making sure that you're giving appropriate wait time. So wait time is painful in real life to begin with. And then when you are online and you are in your house and your students are all kind of just staring at you, it can be even more painful to try to give wait time when you are just sitting silently in your house. And so what I like to do is use timers. And so I'll show you in a moment how I do that. But timers are my savior when it comes to wait time, because I know that I have to wait until the timer goes off, and I try not to talk during the timer time. And that way, I can guarantee I'm giving at least a little bit of wait time. You also want to make sure that you avoid logins if possible. So this one is a tough one, especially because, schools are requiring all these different logins, and maybe your school is requiring something, but I'm going to show you a little bit of Nearpod today. And so Nearpod does not require students to log in, which is my favorite thing. Even with high schoolers, it is impossible to get them to remember like more than one password. So anything that you can do to minimize that will help you out a ton. And then mix it up. So you want to make sure that you are not doing, the same thing week after week, giving students a little bit of variety to make sure that they are engaging with you. So we are going to do a Nearpod activity, but on the screen, I'm going to give you kind of a behind the scenes look as to what I do. So I always, whenever I have students transition into another activity, I still put a timer up, because for whatever reason, you're always going to have one kid where they're going to wait until the very last 5 seconds to click on the link. And if you don't give them a timer, if you don't give them an amount of time, it is just going to last forever, and it just floats. They're just kind of floating. And so this timer kind of gives a sense of urgency and helps with your pacing. So I tell my students, okay, you're going to log in by clicking the link in the chat. They will just need to enter their name one time. And then as long as they use the same computer, their name will be in it every other time. And then I tell them that they can answer the first question while they wait. And so depending on, what grade level, there might be something very simple, maybe picture-based for your kindergartners. But with your fifth graders, they might enjoy using the picture or the GIF option, and I'll show you that in a moment. So I always tell students I'm going to give you 60 seconds to open Nearpod, enter your name, and then if you need more time, raise your hand or let me know in the chat. And so I will ask for your actual participation in this. So, whoops. Okay. And so technology glitches always happening. So just to let you know how I get this timer. So it's just a minute, and so it will count down. To get this timer, all you will do is go to Insert, Video, and then search for whatever amount, whether, so if you want a 1 minute timer, um, that will give you a bunch of different options. I tend to like the timers that don't have music just because, especially if I'm using it for think time or something like that, or I'm trying to answer student questions, it's not kind of going over me. So I am going to show you real quick what this looks like on my end. So this is Nearpod, and I have already started a live lesson. And so in this live lesson, if you click on code up here, I found that it was kind of difficult to get my students to enter codes. Even 8th grade in high school, it was all a little bit time consuming. So when you click on that link up there, this pops up. If you click on link, you can just copy this link. And I found it was a lot easier for students to go ahead and just click on a link. So I'm going to put that link in the Zoom chat, and then I will ask you all to join me in here so you can kind of see what it looks like on your student's end. And so for this is the teacher side. But what I do is I will actually switch it to student view and continue sharing my screen. So that way, if a student can't log into Nearpod for whatever reason, whether it is because their internet bandwidth is just really, really low, or tech issues or whatever. That way they can still follow along, and I tell them, okay, you can send me your answers in private chat instead. So what I will do is so you can go ahead and answer that question there. And so you can see it says find a picture or a GIF. And so my students know beforehand, I always tell them, okay, you're going to click on this little blue button down here to bring up the pictures or GIFs. And then I am able to, on my end, just bringing up this second screen, on my end, I can see what answers are coming through, and then I can approve them. So that's great, especially if you're not so sure, what students are going to put through. So they'll pop up as I approve them. So you can go ahead and answer that if you want. Find a picture or a GIF. All right, and so I will approve them as they come through. And so you can see here, so sometimes students do, I will say, if you don't want to put something in, you see something that resonates with you, you can give it a heart. And so that is something that you can do to check in on students. It's also great too to give students something to do while they're waiting. So like I said, it does not need to be this complex. You could do a check-in with multiple choice with pictures in it as well. Okay, so this is Nearpod, and this feature here is called the Collaborate board. So the Collaborate board. And so I will give you a copy of this Nearpod set of slides if you are interested. Nearpod is free. They do have a premium version that allows you access to their lesson library, but all that you see today is free for you to use and does not require any student login information. Okay, so now we are going to get to the singing game. And so this is going to be the singing game Grizzly Bear. And so like I said, I know I am presenting for wonderful elementary music educators. My main wheelhouse is secondary education. So I am not going to tell you, I know there are different philosophies, probably different approaches that you all have. So take whatever I do today and fit it with your philosophy. So that is what I will start out with. Okay, so
Question.
listen to
Oh,
me sing.
hold on, Michelle,
Oh,
just a
sorry.
second. Question,
Yes.
Pam?
Yeah, so I'm the old dog in the room. So I thought I uploaded a picture. Don't know if I did or not. Um, and then you said, "All right, well now we're going to do the song," and I had a hard time getting back because it clicked my picture into a full screen, and I found it hard to get back to re-navigate to your slide deck or the Nearpod. Is that the way it normally works?
Um, I'm not quite, so it should have, the screen that popped up should have been It should be, so if you are screen sharing or if you look at my screen share in Zoom, it should just pop up this separate box here
I do not have your screen share.
okay. So I'll stop sharing and then re-screen share. Let's see.
Okay.
Okay, can you see my Zoom screen?
It says, listen to me sing.
Yes.
Okay.
And so then, so I tell students click on the blue box here.
Right. And I
And
did that.
so then they'll just need to type in,
I
you know,
dragged and dropped. And when I
they don't
dragged,
have to drag and drop anything. So if they
no,
just type in like dog and then
but
press the search button.
but that's what I did. I did a drag and drop.
Okay. I usually tell my students to avoid the drag and drop just because it can get a little bit messy if they don't put it exactly right in here. Then it will end up taking up your whole screen, like you said. So usually I tell students not to upload anything, but to just go ahead and use the search bar. So I
Yeah.
have a feeling that might have been what would happen, what has happened. But if for
Oh,
some
it just
reason
opened a whole
students
separate window.
yes. So if for some reason students, get navigated away, what I tell them to do is just go ahead and click on the link again, and it will take them to the exact same page. So that is something that I really love about Nearpod is that if they get off, when I switch the slides on my end, they'll also switch the slides on the student end. So everyone stays in the same exact place, no matter what. So if they get lost or whatever, tell them just to go back to the chat and click
So
on that link again.
the picture that I dragged and dropped never actually showed up for you.
Um, Let me go back. It looks like
Is it any
so
of those, Pam?
No, it was a really adorable little boy in a kitchen.
Oh,
so it looks
okay.
like so on my end it looks like you so I can see what people have submitted and it are you Pam?
Well,
So it
I'm
looks like
Pamela.
Different Pam.
oh, different Pam.
We have
Okay.
two. We
Sorry.
have two
And my mom's
Pams
name is
tonight.
Pam too. So you can see, oh, here. So I see Vicky just submitted, yikes. So you can see here what students have submitted. So it is great on the teacher end to be able to check that. And so I'm not, I don't know. I mean, I will say that technology tends to not function 100% perfectly, so I'm not quite sure. And like I said, I would probably just encourage students to try to use the search feature instead of the upload because once we start, dragging and dropping and clicking outside of the Nearpod application, sometimes things can definitely get a little bit messy. But
Okay.
I don't know where your picture went. I'm sorry. It might have just disappeared into the nether regions of the internet. But if that happened in class, I would just ask the student to resubmit, or they can, type in the chat what they wanted to put in or something like that.
Okay.
If they were really that distraught about not being able to see it. So I keep the teacher view up in my second monitor is what I find to be the most helpful for that. The great thing is, and I'll give you this behind the scenes look too, is that you can see all of the students who are logged in here. And green means that they are on this window. If someone clicks away from the window, then it will turn red, although it's not 100% accurate all of the time. So I would not rely on that as like the sole measurement of who is engaged and who isn't. But it is helpful to kind of see if you notice a student that's constantly on red, it might warrant, I will either send a private chat like, hey, if I see them not participating, just, hey, just wanted to check in. Are you experiencing any issues? Saw you missed the last question or something like that. Or, if it's a very persistent issue, perhaps a phone call to see, hey, what's up? Is there technology issue? Is there something else that I need to know about? So and so is not, you know, consistently participating in music class or something like that, just depending on whatever your school policy is. Okay, so all right, let's get into this. So before this, I would not tell the students what the name is. I would just sing it. So here we go. Grizzly bear, a grizzly bear is sleeping in a cave. Grizzly bear, a grizzly bear is sleeping in a cave. Please be very quiet, very, very quiet. If you shake it, if you wake it, it gets very mad. Or alternatively, hear the grizzly roar. So I know that there are different versions of this one. But I would sing that, and maybe I would sing it, 2 or 3 times and have students join in with me perhaps while they are muted, but singing to themselves. And so I would say, all right, can you find a picture of what this song is about? And so again, these kind of activities are these engagement activities going beyond them just kind of listening. And so I have it, and you'll see here, let me give you the behind the scenes, where if you look at my shared screen, I can see, okay, what is pending and what students are submitting. So we see a bear there. So, and then it will show up on student screens as I approve them. So after that, and we decide, okay, the song is about a bear. So then I will say to students, all right, what I want you to do is take out your imaginary pencil. So take out an imaginary pencil because we don't want kids like touching their screen, right? Necessarily. So say take out an imaginary pencil and I want you to tap the hearts, tap the steady beat along as I sing. So here we go. Tap with me. Grizzly bear, a grizzly bear is sleeping in a cave. Grizzly bear, a grizzly bear is sleeping in a cave. And so we would go through and do that. And like I said, if this aligns with your philosophy of how you typically teach a song, great. If not, make modifications. But we would go through that. And I would say, can you circle the heart that doesn't have a word? And so what students can do is, the great thing about Nearpod is that, again, it's moving the slides along. I'm moving along. Everyone else's screen is moving along. And it's automatically selected to be on the pencil pen thing. So students don't need to select anything to be able to do this. All they need to do is start drawing. So go for it. Select or circle the heart that doesn't have a word. And so I will ask you to actually do it so I can show you kind of the behind the scenes of what it looks like. And so on my end.
How do we do that?
So this is just the Draw It feature on Nearpod. And so you can just upload any picture at all to Nearpod, and then it just turns into something that students can draw on. So on my end, I will be able to see all the student answers. And so this is a great way too to kind of do a quick assessment.
I'm sorry. I'm going to slow us down because I have 1,000 questions.
No,
I understand what you want me to do. You want me to draw a circle around the heart that has no word. I want to know how.
So you just click and drag.
Click and drag from where?
On the screen.
The crayon on the bottom of the screen?
You don't even have to select it. It should automatically be selected. And so, whoops.
Okay. So I tried to do it a minute ago. It did nothing. So thank you.
Okay. No worries. No worries. Oh, and it looks like it just kicked me out. So this is the back end of Nearpod. And so sometimes when you try to do things on the student end, like I went and tried to draw on it and it, all you have to do is go back in. And so this is the grizzly bear file. If you click live participation and then resume.
Are we supposed to be able to see you right now showing us how you chose live participation?
So yes, I was showing in the screen share in Zoom. Sorry, I'm going back and forth kind of quickly.
Yeah, you're going to have to tell me where, because I don't have your screen share unless it's somewhere else. I'm looking at your Nearpod, and if you're doing something in the screen share on Zoom, I'm not there.
It's one and the same, Pam. Her screen share in Zoom is her Nearpod screen.
Well, then how can we see what she's showing us to do in her Nearpod screen?
You're
Because
see you're seeing it right now.
no, but she just told us how to make it live, and I didn't see that at all. She said she showed us where the making it live is. And I guess I'd like to know where that is because I'm not seeing it.
Pam, I don't,
Indents?
this is Kate. I don't know if this is going to help you or not, but I've been switching back and forth just by clicking on Zoom down at the bottom of my screen. So going back into the app so that I can see what she's doing and then go back to the Nearpod. I don't know if that helps. Because I know what you mean. I prefer to see her talking and not necessarily just the Nearpod.
Oh, I gotcha. I see what's going on. Okay. Yep.
Well, I can see her talking, but I can't see the actions she's taking.
Do you have it on speaker view?
Well, I have the gallery view.
Up at the top, if you click View, Pam,
Yeah.
and click side-by-side speaker or side-by-side gallery, that would give you her screen share and everybody else.
I don't have a screen. I don't have a side by side. I mean, I've got a strip of the gallery down the right, so I can see. I
So
can
you
see her shared page, but then I
Okay.
can't get back to the activity. And I'm sorry, I'm taking everybody's time being dead.
No. This is professional learning all around.
Yeah, she told you to go to the chat and just click our link again. That would be what's how she would have her students do it.
She probably can't get to the chat because I had that same problem, Pam. The two Pams having the same problem.
Yeah.
So who was it that said go down to the
No, I
box,
can get to the chat. I know all about how to get to the chat.
Zoom again? Because I was just seeing the Nearpod page. I was not seeing what Pam was saying too. Wasn't seeing that.
Right. So, which screen should I look at for you to tell me or show me how you got to making it live to draw on it? That's what I want to see.
Okay, so the shared screen, so do you,
Tell me Zoom or tell me Chrome?
okay, so in
shape.
Zoom, I can show you how to make a session live.
Perfect.
I had just gotten kicked out because sometimes when you try to interact with the student view, when you have a live session, it will kick you out. So I was just showing how to get back into the Nearpod lesson, and it's also how you can start a Nearpod lesson. So do you want to see that again?
Sure, because I didn't see it the first time.
Okay. So if you go into Nearpod and go into my Nearpod, so you will just find the lesson. And so this is again how you would get into this initially. And so you would go just into live participation. And so I have some resources too that I can give you at the end that talk a little bit more about Nearpod and the setup. So if you click on live participation, you can either launch a new session if you want to start something new, or since we are already in one, this is the one for today. If you click resume, that will bring you back into the activity that we are working on. And then you can switch to student view, which is what I use to show students in case they can't get into Nearpod or something like that. Or if they're watching a recording, so that way they can still see, what's on the screen in case, they need to watch the recording, or if they can't get into Nearpod or something like that, just so that they are still understanding, what is happening, just as kind of a backup for tech issues.
Okay, so when you just showed us your page and it said that mine was in progress, so how do you turn something in?
So you'll just press the blue submit button at the bottom, but I can still see even if you haven't submitted.
Well, no, but then that defeats the purpose of me trying to actually do it.
Yeah, so I was just saying, but if you have a student that doesn't press the submit button, you'll still be able to get it. So if you press the blue submit button at the bottom of your Nearpod screen, then you should be able to
Okay.
submit it. Do you see where that is?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. All right, so then this kind of helps students to get prepared for talking about quarter rest. And so we'll go through this second section. I'm not going to go through, you know, necessarily every step, but like I said, every time I press this blue button, this blue arrow, this will move my slides and also the student slides.
The blue arrow to the left of the screen?
To,
Because again,
yeah.
I can't see it.
Well, you won't see it on your end because the student view can't move. The students can't move.
But now I'm
from
looking at your
slide.
screen, right? You're doing a screen share.
Yes.
So where is the arrow that you just clicked? Is it to the left? Can we see it? Because I can't.
It's to the right.
It's to the right over here.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. And so then maybe we'll transfer it, you know, in from just the steady beat to iconic representation. And again, whatever way you like to teach your students a new song, totally up to you. But this, again, you'll get this set of Nearpod slides if you'd like to use them. And so we will go through this. And so this next question is called a polling question. And so the reason why I really like Nearpod's polling questions is because you can add a timer to them. And so again, this helps with pacing and, you know, not kind of waiting like, okay, so-and-so, are you there? Can you answer for me? That kind of thing. And so the question, I will usually read it in advance to my students and I'll say, how many syllables are in the word grizzly? And so this is, again, another engagement activity to add to students. So how many syllables are in the word grizzly? And so this is a poll, and so it will count down on their screen. And so they'll just need to select the answer choice that they believe is the answer, and then press the blue submit button at the bottom to submit their choice. And so I can see on my end all of the answers coming through, and so I will show you that in a moment. But it is a great way to, again, make sure that students, even if their cameras aren't on, that they can still respond, engage. Nearpod is also really great if you're doing a hybrid situation because you can have students who are at home and also in person both log into the same Nearpod and you know, change the slides, and every single student's slide will move at the same time. So on my end, if you come back to Zoom, I can show you what it looks like. And so on my end, it's a great way to kind of do a quick self-assessment or student assessment. You know, our students are grasping this concept or not. And then if you would like to talk about it, if you press the share button, that automatically shares the results to all students' screens. So you can say, okay, you know, 66% of us say it's 2. If there were, you know, people had chosen more answers, that could also lead to a discussion. But this is great too because you will get this report at the end, and you can go back and look at it. And you know, if your admin needs data, it's a great way to also provide that data for them. Okay, so just kind of moving along, like I said, I'm not going to necessarily go through and talk about exactly what we will do for how you would teach this. Maybe if you want to transfer it to stick notation, it's up to you. Okay, so then I would sing the song again. And so, you know, they might say they notice, okay, my voice is quiet when I'm singing the beginning, and when I sing the end, it's loud. Hear the grizzly roar or something like that. So I'm just kind of abbreviating for now, especially for time's sake, since we are moving on. But then you can, again, go into having students interact with this. So this is another activity where students can go ahead and use the draw it feature. So you might say, all right, go ahead and circle what is quiet or piano. So do you think a mouse, a thunderstorm, dog barking, or leaves falling? Which ones do you think are quiet or piano? And again, telling students all you need to do is click and drag and press the blue submit button at the bottom. And so these are ways you want to make sure you are doing more than just having them repeat singing. So having them interact with the material. Again, this is the draw it feature, and all I did was find, 4 pictures. I just put them on a slide in PowerPoint and uploaded it to Nearpod, and then students will be able to interact with it. So okay, then we might do the same thing for Forte. Again, I'm going to go through this. You will have these slides if you would like. And so lastly, I want to be able to play a little bit of the singing game with you. So this is how to play Grizzly Bear. So I tell students we need one person to be the grizzly bear. And the grizzly bear is going to turn around and say, yes, the grizzly bear will actually turn around. And so then everyone will sing and then dance as they go through the song. And so when we get to hear the grizzly roar, or he gets very mad, roar or mad, whatever way that you know this singing game, anyone who is caught moving is out, and a new grizzly bear is chosen from anyone who is still frozen. So then I always tell students, if you are out, you're just going to keep the beat on your body. So students can choose to do that. If students don't turn the cameras on, then I tell them you're going to keep the beat on your body the whole time. So what I will do, and so I will have taught this game and taught all of the words, and we'll know it pretty well before we sing the game. So do I have a volunteer for someone who would like to be the grizzly bear? All that I need you to do is just stay turned around until you hear the grizzly roar, and then you'll turn back around. Anyone who you see moving is out. And so it will just be just for fun. Anyone? Students? Want to be the student? Okay. All right, Pamela. So I'm going to have you, and yes, it is just as awkward the first time you do it with your students, but I promise we'll have fun. So I'm going to have you actually turn around, and so I will sing the song. Your students will be on mute, but they will also be singing the song. And so when we sing, and I'll put the words back up, I'll share the words again, or they're on your Nearpod screen if you need them. But when you turn back around, or when we get to hear the grizzly roar, Pamela, you're going to come back around. Everybody else stops dancing and we'll freeze. And if you see anyone moving, then you'll call the name. So we'll just do it once just to show, how your students would do it. And then I will take questions because we're almost done. So, all right, Pamela, going to have you turn around to be our grizzly bear. All right, here we go. Everyone else, do your best after school dancing. I know we're all tired. So you could just bop if you need to, whatever you need to do. Okay, so here we go. I don't know how well you know the song or not. The words are on the screen. You can just follow along if you don't know the song super well. So here we go. 2, ready, and grizzly bear, a grizzly bear is sleeping in a cave. Grizzly bear, a grizzly bear is sleeping in a cave. Please be very quiet, very, very quiet. If you shake it, if you wake it, hear the grizzly roar.
I saw Pam moving.
All right, and unfreeze. Okay, so so that is one way that you can play a singing game. And so I think that, making sure that students can still play these singing games is really important because they are kind of the best part, right? Students don't necessarily only want to just listen or, respond. And so 2 kind of big parts to that. One is just making sure that as you're teaching it, you're engaging students and they're not just kind of receiving information just like you would, in brick and mortar, but you just have to do it kind of in a different way. Nearpod is one way that you can do that. And then two, being creative with singing games. And so just to kind of wrap up, you can stay, no more Nearpod. So you can stay right here. But let me just share my screen to finish up. So if you would like to make a copy of this Nearpod set, I'm going to put the link in the chat, but it will also be in the slide deck in the speaker notes. And so that is just the straight up the Nearpod that I had with you today. And so you can edit it if you so desire, but that way you can have your own copy if you are interested. And so basically when it comes to engagement, you just need to find what works best for your students. So if you think, the singing game part of that would work well, great. If not, that's totally fine too. But just not being afraid to try different things with students. I also just have a couple of resources for you. So if you are interested in more tips like this, like Jason had mentioned earlier with my book, if you go to bit.ly/teaching music online, you can find more information about that. I also did 2 other sessions previously with how to play different singing games, so Doggy Doggy and then We Are Dancing. And so if you're interested in those, the links are in the PowerPoint presentation, or not Google Slides presentation. And so if you'd like to look at more of how I do singing games, there are those other 2 examples. They also go through more of Nearpod as well. So if you would like those slides, if you go to bit.ly/mainmusicpd, the slides in there from last week, I'll also put that link in the chat real quick. And then you can also make a copy of the slides from today. So if you have any questions, I wanted to leave a little time for you all. Please let me know, and I will be happy to hopefully help you.
Thank you, Michelle, for that presentation and guiding us through using Nearpod in your elementary level classroom. And obviously there's definitely some room for adaptation for other levels as well with that, and using some singing games along with that. So does anyone have any feedback, questions, comments on their situation, things they want to try? Vicki put in the chat, I wonder about using this with non-readers. Michelle, do you have any input on that?
And so I would say just using more pictures and icons. So, you probably wouldn't do the activity where you are typing in, finding a picture or a GIF of a bear necessarily, but you can do more with, so there is an option where in the poll, instead of using numbers or letters, you can add images. And then the draw it feature is really great too, since students don't need to be able to put in text, they can just kind of circle, which can be helpful as well. So I would say you can definitely simplify this using more icons, pictures, that kind of thing, and less open-ended questions. Like you probably wouldn't use the collaborate feature like I did on that first question, just because it would require you to type something in. But sticking more towards the draw it or the poll feature with pictures could probably work pretty well. And I also included where I got, so I use a lot of icons from Flat Icon, and so that is in the slide deck as well. So you can see at the end of this session specifically who I got some of these icons from, as well as just the Flat Icon website. And so you can download a ton of different little icons that are easy for students to see pictures of or understand. So all of the slides that I used in the grizzly bear section are from Flat Icon, and so I just was able to use those, try to use as many free resources as possible.
Great. Good question, Vicki, about the non-readers. That's an important consideration that we all keep in mind. Anyone else have any other questions, comments, feedback?
I'll go. I have to say I'm not sold on using Nearpod. And I'll say why. And it may just be my, if my kids were using it with more teachers, maybe I would be more willing. So one question would be whether my district would even let me use it. I'd have to follow up with them. But I found it tricky to have to go back and forth between Zoom and Nearpod. And I know that it sounds like I didn't have to, but I would think my kids would want to, or would be trying to figure it out, and then they would be off on something. At one point, I clicked on something in Nearpod and all of your slides opened up at the same time underneath. I have no idea what that was, but I'm wondering if I clicked on one of them, if I would have ended up somewhere else. So I would need to figure out if there's a way for my kids to get lost, because if they are off exploring, I don't know that I'd be able to get them back on. And my other question, or a question, would be how much time you have in your lesson. Some of what you did, I feel like I could do quicker. So for instance, I don't need to assess if my kids can tell me that grizzly has 2 syllables, but I do want to know if they know. So I would have just said, boys and girls, how many syllables does grizzly have? Grizzly, show me with your fingers. And we would have moved right on. So some of it I felt like I could have done quicker. For me in my district, I have 30 minutes and it feels like 13 seconds sometimes. So it's not to say I wouldn't use Nearpod. I would need to play around with it a little bit more, but I'm just not sold on it yet. So I don't know if you have any feedback about that.
Yeah, so I will say that it's definitely, don't feel like this is the only way. I think just the more important thing is making sure that you have ways for all students to engage. So if all students have their cameras on and are, showing you everything, your fingers or whatever, that's totally fine. I just find, with students who don't turn on cameras, like Nearpod is a great way to make sure that, I'm seeing all students engaged. I will also say that I don't have students follow along on my screen share. So you were doing a lot of back and forth because I was kind of showing you like what the teacher side looked like and that kind of thing. But when I have my students, I just tell them follow along to the sound of my voice. And then if we are going to play the singing game together where they, need to see everyone, then I'll just have them come back to Zoom. But they won't need to be following along on the screen share or anything like that. I think that, yes, the first time that you do it with students, there are going to be a lot of questions and that kind of thing. But if you have a system worked out, I would say, in the very least, hopefully that the singing game itself can be helpful to you, even if the Nearpod part of it is not.
And I would follow up, Kate, with two comments on that. The first is, if anyone thinks that having a targeted session or a couple sessions on using Nearpod in the music classroom would be of value or use to you, if somebody could put that in their exit ticket, that will help remind me to seek out someone, maybe even from Nearpod, to say, we need an arts person to come and do some Nearpod trainings for us on the most effective ways to use the tool in our classes. And the other would be, I think one thing that we're finding out about virtual or hybrid teaching is that everything takes a little bit longer. And I bet you're all if I had to guess, I would say you probably all are experiencing classes that are the same length of time or shorter than they would be under normal circumstances. So the irony is everyone thinks with technology, you could do more with less time. But I think we're finding that there's an inherent lag in virtual or hybrid engagement with students. So that's one thing I think we're learning from this whole experience, that we're going to have to remember as we go forward, if this becomes a part of our life, in education is that things that we want to do virtually or have done virtually are going to take a little bit more time, or it's going to be a while before the technology can catch up with, real-time stuff. So that's another big component to all of this. But I totally understand where you're coming from.
I will say that once your students have done this once or twice, it gets to be pretty streamlined, because they are used to how the process works, how to log in, how to, what to do when you get to a draw it question, what to do when you get to a polling question. And so I think that, if you have something that works, totally keep going with that. But just making sure that, students aren't just, the biggest thing that I see is just making sure that students are there and are engaging and are, still thinking through those musical skills. So it's definitely, not something that you need to do, but hopefully, gives you some ideas, something that you can try if you're interested. But if not, don't feel pressured, for sure.
Sure. Well, everyone, we've reached our 6 o'clock time, and Kate and I have another meeting to get to, actually, and I'm sure everybody else has other things that I think people want to finally wind down from the day. So I want to thank Michelle again for her presentation today and addressing some of our questions. Don't forget the exit ticket in the chat box. If you want to save the chat, remember, click on the 3 dots at the bottom of the chat screen and click Save Chat, and that will give you access to all the links and the chat text at a later time. I might suggest that you just click on the link to the exit ticket right now. It will open up another tab in your browser, and then you can complete it whenever you feel comfortable. Yes, Pam. You're muted, Pam. Sorry.
When you record the session, do you record the chat as well? Do I have to save that separately? The chat doesn't get saved in?
I don't think the chat gets saved in. I would save it separate just to be on the safe side.
Thank you.
Yep. And Michelle, can you remind me really quick what our next week session is? Because that's going to be the 3rd of our 3-session series. And I can't remember if it's elementary focused or if it's everyone focused. Can you help me?
It's K-12, and it will be engagement strategies, so they're not all going to be Nearpod. So if you really didn't like Nearpod, come next week. I'm going to show you more. I'm sorry, all.
No, it's fine.
Next week is going to be more what you can do in Zoom. There will be a couple things that are also separate, just because it will be K through 12. But there will be more that you can do right in Zoom, just with slides as well.
It's as good a practice, Michelle, for us to figure out what doesn't work for us and why than it is to have something presented to us on a silver platter by our district leaders and then come to find out it actually doesn't work well for us after all. I think it's important for everybody to know what works and what doesn't work for them in their own situation. So this was a fantastic experience.
I want to redeem it before you stop recording. I just want to say, I work with really little kids, and I think some of these fine people do as well. But I want to say that I've seen Nearpod everywhere, in every chat and every thread, on Facebook, on Instagram. I've seen it everywhere. So I want to thank you that you did bring it up and we were engaging with it. And I'm not ready to give up on it. I just wasn't sold in 45 minutes. So
no, totally fair. That's totally fair. I think it does need a lot of tweaking for younger kids. And if you look at if you go into the slides and look at the doggy one, that one, since I did that with a lot younger kids, you'll see that I use a lot more kind of pictures. Like the check-in, the SEL kind of check-in is pictures of dogs feeling different emotions, like cartoon dogs, rather than them finding a GIF or a picture. So but yeah, it definitely does take some work to get to the place that you need to be, but it can be possible for sure. So okay, well, thank you all so much, though. It was great to see you all. Hopefully see you all next week as well.
Absolutely. Yep. Same time, same channel. And this session, the video for this session will be up on the department's YouTube channel sometime within the next few days. So if you want to direct people there, I'll direct people there as well. We hope to see you next week.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.